Welcome to our session about how to use Azure databases and get the superior performance. I hope you are having a fun conference at Ignite. I am Shirish Tota. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Vice President of Operational Databases. Super excited to be here and talking about how to get the best performance from Azure databases. Well, let's dive in. The fact is that the world is at an inflection point. AI is everywhere. You see generative AI applications, real-time analytics, et cetera, is taking over the world at a lightning speed. All our customers, including you, of course, want to take advantage of this. This momentum is real, and you want to basically go ahead and take advantage of this thing, exploit them in a cost-effective way, so you can have your competitive advantage. However, when you think about it, to turn this limitless potential into limitless growth, you need the right tools. And not just right tools, you need them in a cost-effective way. SQL Server and Azure databases can help you there. SQL Server provides leading performance, and Azure databases give you automatic scale without limits. So you can build or access data no matter what the size is. Just yesterday, I was at the other Seattle Convention Center talking to our community at PASS and showcasing all the latest and greatest things that we have done, from SQL to Cosmos to our open source databases, including Postgres, MySQL. Today, I'm going to show all these enhancements to you and help explain how you can build AI-ready apps, intelligent apps, no matter where your data lives, on your own data centers or in the cloud. Well, it begins with Microsoft Cloud. You need a platform that's ready for AI apps. It's secure from ground to cloud, can help you navigate your business situations in these market conditions. When you bring your app or migrate your app to Azure, you can be rest assured you get the best price performance. You can maximize your ROI, and you should know that you're working and operating in a cloud network that's the biggest on the planet, second to none. So how do you do that? Well, SQL Server leads with the performance, and Azure databases can help you, again, without any challenges. Right? You can build or access whatever you want. You can get to go build intelligent, limitless, trusted application in a cost-effective way so that you get to where you need to grow. You can have awesome availability, flexibility in various frameworks, languages, and tools, can deal with various types and data types of any sizes, petabytes and beyond. Well, let's dive into databases a little deeper. To do that, I would love to invite our esteemed guests from Lufthansa Technik, Maximilian Konrad and Simon Faber. And to have a fireside chat with them, I'm going to invite Bob, our product leader, to show us how they're running SQL Server in Azure.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Shirish. Wow. Maximilian, Simon, it's what a wonderful opportunity to have you guys come all the way from Germany to talk about your use of Azure SQL. Let's start it off. Maximilian, why don't you tell us a little bit who you are and a little bit of what you do at Lufthansa Technik, and about Lufthansa Technik's, how are you using Azure SQL today in your business?
Sure. Thanks, Bob, for having us. It's a pleasure to be here at Ignite. So I'm Maximilian Konrad. I'm a cloud architect at Lufthansa Technik. And for all of you who doesn't know Lufthansa Technik, it's the leading MRO service provider in the aviation industry, and we are located in Hamburg. So Hamburg is actually basically the Seattle of Germany. We are a hub for German aviation industry. The weather, the surroundings and the city are super nice, and the weather is usually the same, so it's raining all the time here. So
you're used to it then.
Yeah. So Lufthansa Technik is in the middle of its digital transformation journey, focusing not only on digitizing its existing processes, but also on creating new digital products. As a cloud architect, I'm supporting this journey by providing a state-of-the-art cloud platform together with my team on Azure for our DevOps teams. This cloud platform includes developer tools, a container platform, and of course also application infrastructure like databases and Azure SQL.
Now, DevOps has just caught my mind. I'm a DevOps guy, so tell me and drill down a little bit more about how you guys are using DevOps with Azure SQL.
Yeah, sure. So we are coming from a classic data center on-prem data center setup, where we already use OpenShift for quite some years, enable our developers to really follow DevOps principles in terms of their application deployments. However, application infrastructure, including databases, has always been a black box for them. So they had limited transparency regarding metrics, logs. Also, costs were kind of, not super straight. And when we started building our cloud platform, we wanted to do things a little bit better, because clearly there's like a mismatch between the operation of application deployments and the application infrastructure, and we wanted to enable both for the DevOps teams. So today, with our cloud platform, the DevOps teams can order database servers, so Azure SQL servers, via our self-service platform. So because we already engineered and pre-configured the SQL servers, they are compatible with our platform, and they're also compliant with our security policies. After the initial creation, the teams themselves can create new databases, usually starting with a low compute, low cost tier, and eventually increasing over time depending on their application requirements. So they start very low, they start with low cost, low compute, and eventually go up to hyperscale. So that's a really great advantage of being on Azure SQL. But the biggest advantage from my perspective is the fact that Azure SQL is a PaaS service. So Microsoft takes care of operating the database servers, the underlying infrastructure, and our DevOps teams actually can take full responsibility over the databases without adding too many tasks to their already crowded backlog. Further, also our existing database and operations teams can leverage their expertise and help our DevOps teams with their really difficult problems instead of doing mundane, repeating tasks. So, if I have to summarize myself, I would say that Azure SQL and its unique features really enable our DevOps teams to follow the DevOps approach also for the application infrastructure, and in the end, move faster and build better applications at Lufthansa Technik.
Yeah, Maximilian, what I love about that story is this combination of DevOps with the managed service. So you've actually empowered those developers to be much more effective, much more cost-effective, much faster to build apps, but then bring in the expertise when they need with those SQL skills when it's needed. So what a really cool story. Simon, I think you have some interesting stuff to tell us as well. What are you guys doing at Lufthansa Technik?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bob. So my name is Simon Faber, and I'm the product owner of the data and AI platform at Lufthansa Technik. Maximilian and I, we work in close cooperation since the data and AI platform is actually in our cloud platform. So it mainly consists of Azure Synapse, Azure Machine Learning, and ADLS. So looking on some details, we are losing a lot of features. For instance, we are having Synapse Service SQL pools for data discovery and reporting. We're having Spark pools for our notebooks. With Azure ML, we are actually using the full bandwidth and having also first use cases with OpenAI Studio. So our data engineers and data scientists are happy with the tools that Azure is providing us. At Lufthansa Technik, our business users are, however, at Lufthansa Technik, our business users are actually our most important customers. So, for instance, our colleagues are working at workbenches in our repair shops, and we from the IT should support them with their challenges by providing AI-enabled applications to assist them. To know if these applications are working and the AI models are correct, the feedback of our users in these applications is crucial. So, in the past, we built our AI applications in our on-prem infrastructure. While building up our data and AI platform in Azure, we ran into a lot of integration issues between the platform and our AI applications. There was always engineering effort to get the data out of the application and into the platform to improve our AI models. So by migrating these systems to Azure and as well and use Azure SQL, we were able to solve the integration problems by leveraging managed private networks and managed identities. On top of that, our users actually face a better performance while giving their feedback directly into our applications. This feedback goes directly into the data and AI platform, so we can improve our AI models over time. So with Azure SQL, we enabled seamless user feedback on our data and AI use cases.
Yeah, Simon, when I just look and see this picture here, it just spells just deep integration. integration that's seamless, but in the end gives a great value back to your users yourself. So what a great story. Thank you so much, Bo, for coming today. I love the use case of Azure SQL. Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So kind of continuing on the story of what Lufthansa Technik just told you, this is not just your database engine. We believe Azure SQL is a new modern platform for you to build scalable and even AI-ready applications. So I want to spend the next few minutes kind of talking to you why I kind of believe that's the case. Now, funny story, I was thinking this summer more about Azure SQL, been doing SQL now Server for 30 years, and this idea stuck to me. And I actually wrote it on a napkin at dinner. My wife wasn't well happy I did that, but I wrote this idea called Beyond RDBMS. Now, first of all, the fact that people don't understand made me realize that inside Azure SQL Database, you can do JSON types, spatial, graph. You still have things like column store indexes, memory optimized for performance, but even a blockchain with ledger, and a really intelligent engine for query processing. Now, those still feel kind of like engine concepts, but they're built in and included in Azure SQL. The real beyond is what's on this right side. Did you know that you can now go call stored procedures in an Azure database and access any REST API endpoint, including things like OpenAI? Or you can actually access through your application an Azure database through GraphQL, saving you tons of times of code to connect and run queries against the database. Or maybe you love Azure Functions, and we have built-in deep integration for do serverless programming with functions, including trigger notifications based on data changes. And then we're going to talk in a second about hyperscale, serverless, and pools, technology that allows you to start at a certain place and scale up and scale out to your needs. We even support things like containers and the entire GitHub and DevOps processing. And what wouldn't Ignite be about than talk about AI? And we think we have a great story to share to you as well, how SQL interacts with AI. This, to me, tells you that great story of why SQL is beyond just what you've known for years as a relational database system. Now, one of the things we're trying to do in the Azure SQL space is give you cost-effective options. So I'm very excited that just recently we announced a new free offer for Azure SQL Database. So many people have used SQL Developer Edition for years to get a free access to SQL Server, but what they want is more of a cost-effective way to start developing and building small apps for no cost on Azure SQL Database to get that cloud feel. And this new free offer is now available to you in preview. And here's the thing. It's available for free for the lifetime of your Azure subscription. So check it out if you haven't seen it before. We've had great reviews from customers and developers looking at this new offer. Now, in addition, we want customers who are using managed instance to be able to migrate and experience and test their applications for a very low cost. In fact, coming soon in preview is a new free offer for managed instance, because you know that's a great destination for migration for SQL Server customers, and we don't want you to pay a lot of money just to go through and test and make sure your app is compatible. So stay tuned and look for that preview announcement for the free offer for managed instance. Now, many people have heard this term hyperscale, and that comes to mind with that name, terabytes of databases, large computes, large databases. But we believe that hyperscale can be a great place to start because we now have serverless technology. So pay per core, per hour for your needs, even start small from a compute and storage level. But it's auto. So you don't even tell us. You just give us a range. You tell us, I just want some storage, and you start writing your app. Now, maybe you want to add to that story. You want to extend it. So you can extend it by scaling out, both with cores and both with storage, but even adding replicas to extend the availability story. And then if your business really grows, you can really scale up and out. You can go to the maximum set of cores you need, up to 100 terabytes of data, and including 30 named replicas to scale out your incredible read workload. So when you start thinking about hyperscale now, you should think in terms of the fact that you can start there and scale to your business needs. And in fact, what we're excited to tell you, because we want you to consider this platform to be very affordable for you, is a new lower pricing option. So what I'd like to do is kind of show you for hyperscale, our free edition, what that kind of looks like. So let's say you're in the portal. This is actually my Azure subscription, and I built a database with this new free offer. And I'm like, hey, what's the price? What's it look like? That's actually truly in my database. It's $0. So I can go out there now on a certain core and storage basis per month and test and build and even run small applications in Azure Database. But I want to go farther. I was like, you know what? I want to use this hyperscale option. But if you look at right now, before the new pricing model, for something like 12 cores, it was like $2,400 a month. And I was like, you know what? According to I talked to my bosses, they're like, you got to get this under $2,000. You got to make this more affordable. So if you can see here in the portal now is an announcement of a new pricing offer, and a little bit with some little magic here, you can see the new cost. That is a significant saving for somebody, even at 12-core level of their application, to go now run a hyperscale database. So it's not just for the largest databases in the world, it's very affordable for you and your applications. So think about that. Free offer for Azure SQL Database, new free offer for managed instance coming, and a significant price reduction for running hyperscale applications. Okay, so we believe that SQL can be a great destination to build intelligent apps for AI, and I'm going to prove it to you. So number one, with the REST API integration I talked about, you have built in now into the database engine the ability to integrate your data with REST API calls with OpenAI Search, so with OpenAI services, which means it's very secure. So now, instead of like opening the endpoints to your application, you actually simply use SQL Server calls, secure your database, secure your SQL Server, and you store procedures to access OpenAI. Second of all, we know that Azure Cognitive Search can be a great mechanism to index your data and to get vector searching. So we've got deep integrations now that we've built and have examples for to show you how to do that. And we're investing in copilots. Who is not investing in a copilot? So look for soon for our team for more information about how you can use copilots to get more effective in managing Azure SQL databases. But today, you can use a copilot to help you write SQL queries. Go give it a shot. Look at Copilot for Azure Data Studio. You can be much more efficient to go out there and build queries for your applications. Now that's great, but you want an enterprise-ready, actual proven cloud data engine that can support those AI applications. And we think Azure SQL does that with all the things I've just mentioned already, including this beyond RDBMS story. We know developers and you want to go find examples today on how to do this. So if you look at this website at the top of the screen, AKWS SQL AI, this is a great one-stop shop for you. Everything we're doing in our team for Azure SQL and AI exists on this site. And keep it up to date with it because you're going to see from our team, especially in the next several months, more and more code samples, more and more examples for you on how to build AI apps with your data. So in that vein, I thought it'd be fun to show you an example. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of prompt flow before, but you should check this out. So my goal is to go build like an AI chatbot on my website, but I want customers to interact with my actual data in my website stored in Azure SQL Database in a very context way. So I can use the new prompt flow to do that. In this example right here, what I've done is I've built prompts to go use Python code to go get information based on my products, based on my sales, based on my customers, and I'm going to feed that information down through a flow so that when the chat actually happens, it can actually take advantage of that and give context-rich information to my customers. So you can see this is real code, and this is a sample we've actually published on that site I just mentioned. You scroll down here, you can see examples of the Python code to actually go connect to the database and use a cooperation with Azure Cognitive Search to make this happen. So using the prompts is great to get the queries, but there's some other things I need to do here. I'd like to be able to do a test chat. So right within the prompt flow in Machine Learning Studio, I can test out my data. I can test out whether the chat's going to work and give me rich context for this. Now, I don't give it a customer name yet. I'm just asking it generic questions to see, is it going to come back with something reasonable? Another thing is we want to be responsible in AI. So you can feed into the Prompt Flow Studio instructions for how should the chat behave with our customers. How should it prompt things? How should it say things? Should it be context sensitive to data that we have? It's basically instructions for the behavior of the chat session itself. Now, I've got this working now, but I'd like to test it in real. So once you build one of these prompt flows, you get what's called an endpoint. Let's see what that looks like. Now, notice on the right-hand side here, the input to the endpoint is an actual customer as though he was logged into our website. And if I ask, based on this customer, a question, I'd like to be very context sensitive. So if I'm looking for new bike jerseys for my customers, I want the system as the customer to know what you know about my data. Like, what have I purchased? What is my preferences? What have I purchased in the past? And combine that with, for example, what are some of the most popular things you see other customers purchasing? So you can see we look at previous purchases, we can look at our inventory and our sales data to give that rich experience. But I want to do something further. Let's say you're trying to get like ratings for popular things. So you can see here, what are the most popular mountain bikes these days? Well, you'd have to go do like a search for what customers have rated, and that's fine. But what I'd like to do as a customer to know, as a company, what does your sales data look like? at an aggregation level so you can tell me what are the most popular selling bikes people are buying. And now with this prompt flow, I can do that. I can say, hey, well, based on our data, here are the most popular mountain bikes, because we know you've purchased mountain bikes. Here's the types, the sizes, here's the price. We can even give information like, look, this is our top seller, and here's how many have sold in the last month. So you can just see this incredible rich experience now for a customer working on our website, all based on using context information with an OpenAI service against our actual data in Azure database. Now, one last thing to show you. I like testing things. So I wanted PromptFlow to be able to do things like called batch runs. I wanted to feed it a bunch of different inputs for possible customer scenarios and chats and come back and tell me, how good is it? Is it going to be any good for my scenario? Because I don't want to do this kind of ad hoc. So anytime I make changes, it's like doing a whole test run. And batch runs provide that. So you can scroll down and see the kind of different answers I can get. And if you scroll over to the right, you can kind of see something called GPT groundness. This tells me, how good is it? What is the quality of the answers I'm getting back? So look what I've done here. I've used Machine Learning Studio to build a PromptFlow application with Python. I've integrated with Azure Cognitive Search. And now I've built a rich chat experience that I can now go embed with my application. This is a good example of why we think Azure SQL can be a great destination to build AI-ready apps. Well, I think that was a great summary of what we're doing now with Azure SQL Database. I'd like to bring on stage now my colleague and friend Denzel Rivera to talk about what's going on in the world of Postgres.
Thank you, Bob. At Ignite, we've announced preview for many performance features that allow you to build scalable applications and AI-ready applications. Premium SSD v2 is now in preview, as well as fast scaling and IOPS scaling. Digging into some of these features, Premium SSD allows you to have lower latency I/O and have up to 80,000 IOPS, support 64 terabytes of database size as well. It unshackles kind of some of the constraints you prior faced with the service. In addition to this, we have improvements to the scaling. As you scale up, your compute downtime is reduced fundamentally. And then we have separated IOPS from storage size. So this enables you to scale up IOPS without, irrespective of the storage size. Now, if we look at kind of a demo here, when we provision a Flex server, we choose storage. And in the Premium SSD offer, the IOPS are tied to a storage size. Now we have a choice to actually use Premium SSD v2 and scale up your IOPS all the way to 80,000. And this is irrespective of whatever the size of the database is, as well as your bandwidth can go up to 1200 MB. Running a HammerDB TPCC workload on V1, you see that IOPS gets pegged, and your IOPS percentage is at 100%, and your bottleneck becomes IOPS. Whereas, and your CPU is not really used. You hit the limits of the disk size, which is 7,500 IOPS, and your bottleneck as well is your log writes. So throughput is throttled effectively on I/O. Switching over, with the new Premium SSD v2, CPU is used much better, and we'll see the results of that. Your IOPS scale very well to 30,000 here in this case. And you're no longer bottlenecked on what you were before. So the gains are 3x. If you see Premium SSD versus Premium SSD v2, you see a 3x gains in performance, as indicated by the TPM running HammerDB tproc-C workload. That's one example. The other example is latency. Really, so here this is a workload which is running a serial insert. Right? So on the left, you have Premium SSD. On the right, you have Premium SSD v2, which gives you, the more IOPS. And I'm just calling a stored procedure, which inserts a bunch of rows. So I have an insert stored procedure, which just takes a parameter, which is a number of rows, and in a for loop actually does individual inserts. It's not something you want to use for bulk inserts. And each row is committed, and the record side is about 500 rows. When you commit in Postgres, this issues an fsync or synchronous I/O, so it has to actually issue an I/O. Going back to kind of the results of this, you'll see that the latency reduces by almost 50% here. You're inserting the same amount of records in both cases. but your latency drops by 50%. The total time in seconds is drops from 44 seconds to 25 seconds, and the average latency per insert drops from 1.4 milliseconds to 800 microseconds. So that was the second example on latency. The next set of improvements are around AI. You've seen in Scott's keynote demo as well, we've used the AI extension is now in preview, as well as we've updated the PG vector, which enables vector storage within the database to the new version. So the AI extension provides you an easy SQL interface to call into Azure OpenAI for embeddings, as well as Azure AI language services for things like for PII recognition or other language services. And in conjunction, this is complementary to the vector data type, which allows you to store embeddings, to search them efficiently, to define indexes on them. And so together, they make a great story. So let's say I'm a dev whose job is to improve the search relevancy of my website. So I have customers searching. I want to improve that relevancy. I have a recipes table where my searchable columns are title, ingredients, and direction. And my current application does what all historical applications do. They use the like clause. Sure, if I search the title and ingredients, I get a set of rows. And that's fine. But if I use any semantic search or intent-based searches, like give me high-protein recipes, I get 0 results, because like clause is just a phrase match. Similarly, if I try this with full-text search, which is more optimized for searching, the same thing happens. I get 0 rows because it doesn't understand the context. So could I do this with GenAI and OpenAI and embeddings and vectors within the database? Yes, you can. So in this case, you need the Azure AI extension as well as the vector extension. Azure AI allows you to get the embeddings. Vector allows you to store that and query efficiently. And those are installed and configured there. And then once that is done, you can use those right within your application from within SQL. One example is just adding a column, which is a vector column, and is generated by default. Every time you insert a row, it calls into the create embeddings UDF call, which is just a UDF call, passes title, ingredients, and directions, gets back a vector from Azure OpenAI, and stores it in the table. In addition, we can create indexes to speed up your search queries. HNSW is a very efficient indexing methodology. And then, let's insert a recipe now, which is oatmeal breakfast bars. As we insert the recipe, along with your operational data, the vector is generated, the embedding is generated and stored within the database. And now you can potentially use that vector to do smarter things. Like, for example, give me high-protein recipes can look like just using the create embeddings, getting an embedding for your search string, and doing a similarity search with the vectors stored within the database, which will also pick up that HNSW index. And as you see, the results are fundamentally better. You get many results, the top of which is oatmeal breakfast bars. It doesn't have high protein anywhere in the ingredients or any of the other columns. OpenAI embeddings and vector search help make this an easy scenario from within PostgreSQL. Over to you, Parikh.
Thanks, Denzel. Hi, my name is Parikshit Savjani. I lead product for Azure Database for MySQL service. Let me start by sharing some of the exciting journey and the momentum we've had in the Azure Database for MySQL product space. A couple of years back in Ignite, we launched our flexible server service, which provides zone-resilient high availability, maintenance control, and low-cost burstable service tier, which are very popular among application developers. Next, in April 2022, we launched general availability of our business-critical service tier, which is ideal for low latency, high availability, high throughput web and mobile applications running on MySQL. Since then, the team has been hard at work delivering new features pretty much every month and making the service enterprise ready and delivering some of the differentiated security features available only in Azure. Today, I feel extremely excited to announce public preview of our latest innovation called Accelerated Logs. With Accelerated Logs, our customers will be able to achieve 2x throughput and latency out of the box on open source community version of MySQL. And the best part, it's available at no additional cost to customers. So let us dive right into the demo to learn more. So for this demo, we have provisioned a 32-week code business-critical MySQL flexible server. We use sysbench benchmark with OLTP workload, 70% read, 30% write, and 20 tables and 20 million records per table. We run the script for around 5 minutes with 128 concurrent threads. With this configuration, we achieve a throughput of around 4,500 transactions per second, 90,000 queries per second, at P95 latency of 51 milliseconds. Now, what we do is we turn on accelerated log on this MySQL flexible server, which is a turnkey setting, and save that. We make no other changes on the backend MySQL flexible server. And we rerun sysbench from the same client VM using the same configuration. And now here you see, with accelerated log enabled, you achieve 9,500 transactions per second, 190,000 queries per second at P95 latency of 21 milliseconds. Again, if you compare the performance side by side, with accelerated log enabled, you achieve more than 100% improvement in throughput and latency out of the box, no application changes required. Now, the next obvious question which might come to your mind is like, this is great, but how do you compare against your competition? So let me share those stats. A study performed by Principal Technology shows Azure Database for MySQL flexible server with accelerated log enabled delivers up to 2.2x better transactions per second at 55% lower latency compared to our competitors. In other words, if you're migrating from some of our competitors, for the same performance, you can afford to choose a lower SKU and save cost. And moreover, these gains are achieved on open source community version of MySQL compared to other proprietary MySQL offerings, thereby avoiding the risk of data lock-ins. As MySQL is popularly used in content management system, some of our customers have built intelligent generative AI application using Azure OpenAI with Azure Cognitive Search integration serving as vector storage. Such seamless integrations in Azure allows you to unleash your power of the data stored in MySQL to do more. So let me summarize and bring it all together for you. By hosting your MySQL workloads on Azure, you achieve best price performance in the industry. You get access to most differentiated security, compliance, and privacy features only available in Azure. You continue to be on open source community version, thereby avoiding single cloud lock-in. You get zone resilient high availability and flexible maintenance control. And you can drive more value from your data by leveraging Azure OpenAI integrations and Microsoft Fabric innovation, by leveraging the Azure OpenAI and Microsoft Fabric innovations. To learn more, you can check out the additional resources here. If you're a MySQL SME, database enthusiast, or a data and AI champ, we would invite you to join our community to help us improve the product, to stay plugged in with the product, and be a contributor. Now, let me pass it back to Shirish to share more about our hybrid offerings. Thanks.
Thank you. We have seen an amazing array of how we are doing in terms of scale and performance in a cost-effective way. Bob introduced us to the beauty of how SQL is growing with free offers, SQL Hyperscale and whatnot. Awesome progress on the Postgres side by Denzel. Again, amazing performance gains on MySQL. Now, I want to turn my attention a little bit towards something. Another important aspect which is super exciting. I want to share how we are enabling our customers to do the most with their data estate, no matter where it lives, with Azure Arc. So throughout the session, you've heard the power of Azure Data Platform, and rightfully so. It's super powerful, right? Azure Arc is how we want to extend this power to your data estate, SQL servers on your data centers, or if you're running SQL servers on different clouds, no matter where they are. We want to extend the power of Azure Cloud and help you modernize these applications, whether they're not ready to migrate or if they're not able to for whatever reasons, compliance and whatnot. We want to help you all modernize these migrations through Azure Arc. That essentially means that SQL Server will get the benefits of the same Azure management that you typically expect from SQLDB. You'd get the same benefits of governance and security to your on-prem environments in the single pane of glass, in the same seamless experience that you're used to in the cloud. And that's the power of Arc. We have announced a significant number of features this week for SQL Server enabled by Arc. I want to quickly go through them and just show some of those things. So number one, you can gain critical insights on your SQL Server estate, wherever they are, on-premises to cloud, diagnose your problems faster, optimize for significant performance with monitoring for SQL Server enabled by Arc, now in preview. Now with this, you can go from reactive mode to proactive mode. Your team can absolutely improve your uptime for databases and avoid some routine database maintenance tasks. Then there is the enhanced high availability disaster recovery management. Now, this feature helps you have business continuity for your SQL Server and consistency. You can view always-on availability groups, failover cluster instances, backup restores, again through Azure Portal. This is not just about visibility. Of course, it will improve your visibility, but you can also run awesome features. You can enable them right from the portal. Finally, I'm super proud to announce that we are now extending security updates as a patching service through Arc. So up to 3 years after the extended support, you can run this as a service through Arc. If you're running SQL Server, old versions of SQL servers, or if you're running elsewhere on different clouds, you can run these critical patches right from the portal. Now, this feature also gives you financial flexibility with a pay-as-you-go model. Now, finally, I just wanted to bring it all together and see how our customers are using these hybrid capabilities. To talk about that, I'm bringing upon to the stage the World Bank. This is a customer who have started using SQL Server enabled by Arc, and they have managed to modernize their estate and connect to the cloud. So to talk more about that, I'd love to invite on stage Chandra. Thank you, Chandra, for joining us today.
Thank you, Suresh.
The World Bank is a world-renowned, of course, a financial institution that empowers governments of low and middle-income nations. Thank you for joining us, of course, and would love to start by asking you to introduce yourself and maybe help us explain the mission of World Bank.
Yeah, thank you, Suresh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So my name is Chandra Kalamacha. I'm the information officer and technical lead managing the SQL Server database operations at the World Bank. Let me tell you about the World Bank's mission here. The World Bank is tirelessly working to end the extreme poverty and boost the prosperity on the livable planet. To achieve this, World Bank is offering lending services in the developing countries across the world. So every dollar counts to eradicate this poverty. So at the World Bank, IT unit started re-evaluating and exploring options to reduce the operational costs. World Bank has about 350 SQL servers on premises and on multi-cloud environments. And IT units and information security office unit had different decentralized tools to manage these SQL servers and also performance monitoring and security compliance. So, and it was challenging and taking time to consolidate the data, analyze, and generating the meaningful report to the management and clients. So we needed one solution to manage all this. So IT unit started exploring many options and decided, selected to go with Azure Arc. So that's how we ended up.
Well, thank you. Thank you for making Azure Arc a small part of your mission. I'd love to understand how has it been helping you so far?
Yeah, Azure Arc is a centralized single pane of glass solution to manage our entire SQL Server estate. And Azure Arc has greatly improved efficiency and security compliance while reducing the operational costs. And best practices assessment reports and Microsoft Cloud Defender helped to significantly reduce the security risks and non-compliance issues. And this tool also helped us to streamline our cloud migration journey.
Wow, that's interesting. So you mentioned about cloud migration. That's an interesting part. And, naturally, Azure Arc is an efficient mechanism for those who don't quite yet want to migrate, but it can also help you migrate seamlessly as a step one, let's say. Could you expand a little bit more on that migration challenges that you faced?
Yeah, sure. Azure Arc helps with inventory management, performance monitoring, and streamlining the maintenance tasks, and also capacity planning. And best practice assessment reports and Cloud Defender helped us to get insights of cloud migration readiness, actually. So based on all these things, we could migrate, say, on-prem SQL servers to cloud successfully, and looking forward to to migrate all the SQL servers in the near future. So.
Thank you, Chandra. It's amazing to see how Azure Arc is enabling our customers to do more and achieve more. Your story is inspiring. The mission of World Bank is such a noble one, and we are super honored to be a part of that mission. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Well, finally, I just wanted to call out that we are here, we are ready to help you, whether this is your first step or this is the next step in your journey. We have a program in place with Azure Migrate and Modernize and Azure Innovate. We are here, we have a booth, and you can come and talk to us. Thank you so very much for joining us and learning about how Azure Databases is helping you to achieve that limitless potential and channel that into your limitless growth in a cost-effective way. I hope you enjoy the rest of this conference. Thank you so very much for joining our team today. Thanks.